Okay, so I'm going to do a quick read through of this newspaper, the Jasper Pipestone County, Minnesota, the Death Angel. Mrs. Edward Eng summoned to her final rest at an early hour Saturday morning. The news received here last Saturday morning of the death of Mrs. Edward Eng at the hospital at Worthington, which occurred at an early hour of that day, was a most unexpected and sorrowful shock to the parents and other relatives of Mrs. Eng, and to the entire community of which she had been a member for years prior to her marriage. On Saturday morning, July 29th, the date being Mrs. Eng's 31st birthday, twin baby boys were born at 3 o'clock. The mother expressed her deep appreciation of the good fortune which had been hers in the birth of her baby boys, but shortly afterwards suffered a serious sinking spell from which attending physicians and nurses were unable to arouse her, and she passed peacefully into the shadow of death at 6:30 a.m. Fannie Walter was the youngest daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Ransom Walter of this village, and was born at Sherman, South Dakota, July 29th, 1880. At the age of 12, her parents moved to Jasper, and for a few years Miss Fannie attended our public school, where her pleasant disposition made her a favorite with everyone. Later she graduated from Sioux Falls College and the State Normal School at Madison, South Dakota. Up to the time of her marriage, she followed the profession of teaching, for which she had so ably equipped herself. When still a young child, she's something with the Young Women's Christian Union and has ever been member of the Fulda Union. At the time of her death, she united with the Presbyterian Church at early age, never having withdrawn her membership from the Jasper Church. She was also a charter member of the Christian Endeavor Society of Jasper and a member of the Order of the Eastern Star, holding the station of Esther during the present year. June 10th, 1908, she was married to Edward Eng, one of the prominent merchants of Fulda. This union, though brief, was a most happy one, the charming manners of the child developing in the mature woman made her an ideal wife and mother. She is survived by her husband, young son Ransom, aged 2 years, and the baby twins born Saturday. Her father and mother and sisters, Mrs. A.D. Park of Jasper and Mrs. J.E. Rolfe of Billings, North Dakota. To these, whose sorrow seems greater than human hearts can bear, the universal sympathy of community will be extended. The remains were brought to Jasper Sunday evening, the funeral services being conducted by Reverend F. L. McKean at 10:30. From the Presbyterian Church proceeded by a brief service at the home. The remains were laid at rest in the Jasper Cemetery, the exercises at the grave being in charge of Fulda Chapter, OES, assisted by members of Taylor Chapter, and ceremonies being impressively rendered. Friends and relatives from out of town who attended the funeral were Mr. and Mrs. Ludwig Eng of Ballaton, Mr. and Mrs. J.F. Carlson of Gary, South Dakota, Christian Eng, Miss Lena Eng, John Eng of Ballaton, Mr. and Mrs. Hugh Stahl of Sioux Falls, Dr. and Mrs. H.D. Jenkins, and Miss Ida Carr of Pipestone, Mrs. M.H. and Miss Mamie Lobdell of Hills, and a large number of Fulda Chapter OES members. Card of thanks. We desire to express our gratitude To the many kind friends for their kindness and sympathy in our bereavement. Mr. and Mrs. Ransom Walter, Edward Ng, 80 Park